Tokyo never waited for anyone. Every morning, the trains arrived, the streets filled, the vending machines somehow never ran out of drinks. And somewhere among 8 million people lived a man named Kaito. Now, Kaito had a fascinating hobby, starting things. He had started learning guitar, 3 songs, quit. Started going to the gym, 6 days, quit. Started reading, bought 12 books, finished half of one. His apartment looked less like a home and more like a museum, dedicated to abandoned ambitions. One evening, his grandmother visited. She looked around the apartment. The dusty dumbbells, the untouched language books, the expensive treadmill, now functioning mainly as a very expensive clothes rack. She nodded slowly. "I see." Kaito sighed. "I know. I have no discipline." Grandmother smiled. "No. You have too many beginnings." The next morning, she handed him a tiny notebook, no bigger than his wallet. Inside, every page contained only one empty box. Just one. Kaito frowned. "That's it?" She nodded. "Fill one box. Every day. No more, no less." He laughed. "Or what if I want to do more?" She smiled. "Oh, tomorrow." At first, it felt ridiculous. He wanted to exercise, so he did. 1 push-up. He stared at the floor. Seriously? His notebook received 1 tiny check mark. The next day, 1 push-up. Again, his friends laughed. My grandmother could beat that. Kaito laughed too. "I know, but tomorrow, I'll still do 1. A week passed. His streak grew. The push-up wasn't making him stronger. Not yet. But something else was changing. He had stopped asking, "Do I feel like it?" Instead, every evening, he simply looked at the empty box, then filled it. One rainy Tuesday, he came home exhausted. His boss had spent 3 hours explaining a 15-minute task. The train was delayed. Someone spilled coffee on his jacket. He collapsed onto the couch. "I'll skip today." Then he noticed the notebook, 1 empty square. He sighed dramatically, dropped to the floor, did 1 push-up, stood back up. Well, that was underwhelming. But the box was filled. The weeks became months without realizing it. The 1 push-up became 5. 5 became 20, not because the notebook demanded it, because once he was already on the floor, stopping felt silly. His grandmother never increased the goal. Life did it naturally. Then he applied the notebook to saving money, not thousands, just 1 small transfer. Every payday, check. Reading, 1 page, check. Learning English, 5 minutes, check. Cleaning, 1 drawer, check. Soon, his life became strangely quiet. Not easier, just simpler. There were no debates, no dramatic speeches, no Monday motivation videos, only tiny check marks. His coworkers noticed. "Kaito, how are you suddenly so disciplined?" He shrugged. "I'm not. I just don't leave boxes empty." One coworker laughed. "That's your secret?" Kaito smiled. "I never said it was impressive." Months later, the company announced a half marathon. Everyone got excited. Everyone downloaded running apps, bought expensive shoes, watched motivational videos. By the 2nd week, most had already stopped. Kaito, who had never run seriously before, walked outside, ran for 5 minutes. The next day, 5 minutes. Again, nothing dramatic. No inspirational music, no montage. Maybe 1 pigeon judged him, but that's about it. Race day arrived. The starting line buzzed with nervous energy. 1 coworker stretched like an Olympic athlete. Another had enough energy gels to survive a polar expedition. Kaito quietly tied his shoes. Someone whispered, "You're actually doing this?" He nodded. "I've already done it." What? The difficult part. The gun fired. Thousands ran. Some exploded forward. Some burned out. Some stopped halfway. Kaito just kept moving. 1 step, then another. Exactly as he'd practiced. Not because he was more talented, because consistency had already become familiar. Crossing the finish line felt almost ordinary. His grandmother was waiting. She handed him a fresh notebook. He laughed. "Another marathon?" She shook her head. "No. A lifetime." Years passed. People often asked Kaito, "What's the best productivity app? What planner do you use? What's your morning routine?" They expected a complicated system, a secret Japanese technique, perhaps a mysterious monk living on a mountain. Instead, He pulled a tiny notebook from his pocket. The pages were worn, corners bent, thousands of tiny check marks, nothing more. Someone frowned. "That's all?" Kaito nodded. "The method is making today's decision so small that tomorrow's version of you never has an excuse. Because consistency rarely begins with giant goals. It begins when the goal becomes too small to argue with. One page, one push-up, $1 saved, one kind act, one promise kept, repeated until the action no longer feels like something you do. It becomes who you are. And that's the quiet secret the Japanese have understood for generations. Motivation comes and goes. Discipline gets tired. But identity keeps showing up, even when nobody is watching. Because in the end, the people who change their lives are rarely the ones who make the biggest decisions. They're usually the ones who simply keep filling one little box every single day.